Natalie started it, except she was doing it backwards and in heels. So I work really hard not to prepare for talks because I want to somehow suck the inspiration out of all the amazing humans that I'm going to see and somehow reflect that back to you. So I started working on something earlier on today, but as you were streaming in today, I was struck by how beautiful you were. You are an incredibly beautiful collection of humans. And so I was born in Iran, and what Persians do when they see beauty is that they quote their poets. And so I'm going to start with a poet that I just pulled up. His name is Sa'di. And Persians like to speak with inanimate objects in their poetry. So this is Sa'di speaking with a piece of clay. He says, "Are you musk or amber? Your scent is intoxicating." The clay answers back, "I am just a humble piece of clay, but for a day or two, I've kept the fellowship of roses. It's their companionship that has had an impact on me. Otherwise, I am just ordinary clay." So I've been studying systems for a couple of decades now, somewhat obsessively, thinking about how do they work, why do they work, when do they work, how do they fail, sometimes colossally. And in my work at SecondMuse, we focus in particular on economic systems. So we're really obsessed with creating economies, building these economies that create social and environmental justice. And one of the reasons why we feel confident that we can do that is because systems happen by design. And so I'm gonna give you two realities, and I'm gonna ask you in your minds to construct a classroom based on the reality that I'm sharing with you. So reality number one is that a child is a blank slate. Knowledge is something that transfers from one human to another human. You either have it or you don't. Older humans tend to have more knowledge, younger humans tend not to. And so as you're thinking about how you might structure a classroom or how you might structure an interaction, you may have put a pulpit in front of a classroom, and you may have put 30 little human desks facing that thing, and you might have had diligently little students writing down everything that the pearls of wisdom sort of said. So let me give you another reality. A child is a mine full of gems of inestimable value. And it is the job of education to be the interface between that inherent value, that inherent onlyness, and a mysterious world that child may be the only one that can actually unlock a particular element of that. Now, if I describe this reality to you, you've designed an entirely different classroom, you've designed an entirely different pedagogy. This is how all of our systems are designed on the spectrum of sometimes decades or centuries. So we interface with reality, and we try to understand it, and then we build these ideas, and these ideas turn into theories, and these theories turn into models, and these models turn into structures, and the structures are the things that we live in and sometimes drive us crazy. But the key is that if you start with a flaw idea, you're going to have a flawed system at the end. And there's no getting around that. And the flaweder your original idea is, the flaweder your system is actually going to be. So inaccurate ideas lead to flawed systems. So as we're building new systems, we have to be obsessed with figuring out how do we read reality in a way that our ideas are less flawed. The tricky thing is that we're not terribly well designed to accurately read reality as human beings, at least not alone. We get millions and millions of data that comes at us, every single day in the form of sights and sounds and ideas and people and humans, and we process these at a total subconscious level that most of us have no access to, all of us technically. Then we throw 80% of it away, and the rest of it we put on top of layers and lenses about stuff that happened to us when we were 2 and 3 and 4, and then we come out with an idea of the reality that we actually see. We're not interfacing with reality. We're interfacing with an insanely biased perception of reality. And this is just a neurological reality of what makes us human. So the only way that I've ever thought that we can actually get closer to reality is by accessing each other's flawed reality. Where on the one hand, as Talia mentioned, we all have these massive flaws, but on the other hand, we all have this unique perspective that is unique in us alone and the value that we actually have. And it is not like a nice to have each other. It is an absolutely desperately needs to have each other if we want any semblance of actually understanding what reality is in the first place. But the thing is that accessing somebody else's reality isn't just about asking somebody their opinion. accessing someone's reality, you have to have a trust in this person. I'm not talking about like catch me if you fall type of trust. I'm talking about the trust that you had in your pilot when you flew into San Diego yesterday. You fundamentally knew that this person did something better than you, and this person had something better. I'm talking about the trust you give your surgeon before they open you up. It's not like, yeah, we're both cool, but I'll let you get this one. It's like, this is it. This is a trust where your fundamental belief is that this person has something of value that you don't have. I had an opportunity to be in New Zealand a few years back, and I developed a wonderful relationship with one of the leaders of the Maori party, and she took me to her marae. And I walked in at 11 o'clock at night, and there was this council of elders, and they had this beautiful spread of dinner around me, and they welcomed me, and they loved me up, and the man pressed his nose against mine, and he pulled me back, and he said, "You are here with a message for me. And we hope that we are able to hear the message that you have coming to me." Now, I was half their age. I had no social, no political, no cultural context. I was like as useless as you could possibly be for anybody that's dealing with the issues that they have. But they loved me up, and they trusted me, and they knew I had something of value, and I gave them my world. This is trust that feels suspiciously like love. And they extracted my data more efficiently than any algorithm I have ever seen. So if we're trying to change these systems, but our change is ultimately going to be as good as the accuracy of the way that we perceive reality and the ideas that we have. And those ideas are only going to be as good as the diversity of the people that we actually keep around us. But our access to that diversity is only be as good as the extent to which we trust that. Well, how long does this take? This sounds like something that you need to build in years and decades. So as you look at the person next to you, we have a couple options with how we interface with people. We can get to know them and figure out what sports team they follow and where they went to school and what they named their kids and who they voted for and what they think and what their political ideology is. And if we like them, we might get close to them. And in 3 years, they're going to blow our mind with what they know. Or we could lead with trust. We could say, I fundamentally trust you before I know you. And the trajectory of a relationship that starts with trust is fundamentally different than one that does not. So will you change the system of education? I mean, you already are. And you unquestionably will. You're diverse organizations. You're actually committed long-term, and you have a unified vision. Of that, I have no doubt. The system that you create will as much be defined by the people in the room as those that are not in the room. It will be as much defined by your minds as it will be by your hearts. It will be as much defined by the quality of your ideas as the quality of your compassion. The question that you have is not whether your end justifies the means. It's the certainty that your means will unequivocally define the future that you're building. Thank you so much for inviting me to share some of your thoughts and for hearing some of yours.